Hi Year 10, this is Mr. Srikantapalan here, and in this video we're going to look at how to round to significant figures. Now, to round to significant figures, you already need to know a little bit about rounding, which you should already have learned. So just to double check, I'm going to post some questions up now. And what I'd like you to do is pause the video and round those as it shows in the brackets. When you've finished having a go at those on paper, unpause the video and see whether you got them right. So pause the video now, have a go at those, and then I'll be back with the answers. Okay, hopefully you've been able to have a go at those questions. So I'm going to go through these, and if you had any difficulty with them, then you may want to stop this video and actually have a go at doing some rounding work on decimal places and to the nearest 10, 100 and 1000, which you can do on Hegarty tasks 56 and 17 before we come back to this task, which is your main task. So the first question was to round this number to the nearest 1000. Now, to do this, the first thing you need to do is figure out which column the thousands column is, and hopefully you can see that because the decimal point is here, that makes this column the ones column, this column is the tens column, this column is the hundreds column, and this column with the 5 in it is the thousands column. And so we know that the thousands column for this particular number has a 5 in it. Okay, and so when we look at the number line that I've drawn below, we know that this number must be between 5,000 and 6,000. Notice that I'm using a number line that goes up in thousands because the question asked me to round to the nearest 1000. And now the next thing I need to do is work out where on this number line the number that I was given, this number here, goes. Is it nearer to this end or nearer to this end? And the easiest thing to do to work that out is to first work out the number which goes in the middle of these two. So in the middle of these two, exactly halfway, would be 5,500, and then you can figure out whether the number in the question, whether this number here is lower than this, so on this side, or higher than this, which would be on this side. And to decide that, really all you need is this next column, the hundreds column, and that tells us that it's nearer to this side, so it's between these two, goes somewhere around about here. And so to round this to the nearest 1000, we can see it's nearer to 5,000 than 6,000, so my answer would be 6,000 to the nearest 1000. Okay, I'm going to do this a bit faster on the next part. So exactly the same process, this time this digit is in my hundreds column, and so I know that the number in the question is between 5,200 and 5,300. Halfway in between those two, again remember the reason I'm doing hundreds this time, so 5,200 and 5,300, is because the question asked me to round this to the nearest 100. Halfway between these two numbers is 5,250. I can see that 5,267.83 would be higher than that. It would be somewhere over here, which means it's nearer to 5,300. So my answer is 5,300 to the nearest 100. Okay, next one. Here's the tens column. So I know this time that it's between 5,260 and 5,270. I'm looking at tens because the question said nearest 10. Halfway between these two is 5,265. This is 5,267.83, so that's going to be higher than the middle. So that means it's nearer to this end. So 5,000 270 to the nearest 10. Here's the ones column. So this time my number line needs to go from 5,267 to 5,268. Remember that this is asking me to do it to the nearest 1. In between those two, exactly halfway between, is 5,267.5. This is 5,267.8, 0.83, so that's definitely bigger, so that's going up here somewhere. Definitely nearer to this end, so 5,268 to the nearest 1. Okay. Then the tenths column, here's the tenths column. So this time my number line needs to go from 5,267.8 to 5,267.9. Using tenths because this is asking me to round to the nearest tenth. Halfway between those two is 5,267.85. This number is 0.83, so it's going to be less than the middle. So that means it's nearer to the left-hand side of my number line. So it's nearer to this one here. So 5,267.8 to the nearest tenth. Okay, so as I said, if you've struggled with any of that, then you should stop this video now and have a go at tasks 17 and 56 before you come back to doing this task, which is your main task. Okay, now in this video we're going to look at significant figures, and significant figures really are about what tells you the most information about a number. So if you look at this number, that's the number that we were just looking at in the questions we just did, the digit that tells us the most about this, if someone would say to you, you know, broadly speaking, what's that number? Well, the 5 in the thousands column, because it's the biggest column that has something in it, the 5 is telling us the most information here. It's telling us that it's around the 5,000 mark. If it was 5,800 and something, it'd be nearer to 6,000, but it still gives me a good idea about the number. The 5 still gives me a good idea. Whereas the fact that there's a 6 in the tens column, well, there's loads of numbers that have 6 in the tens column, which would be nothing like this number. Here's another number that has a 6 in the tens column, but is nowhere near the number in the question. So you can see that the 6 in the tens column doesn't really tell us as much as the 5 in the thousands column. It's not so much that it's in the thousands column as it's in the biggest column. So this, the 5 in this number, is our most significant number. And as a result, it's our first significant figure. It's the figure within that number that tells us the most. And so it's the first significant figure. You can probably guess then that this one here is the second significant figure. And then that should hopefully make it obvious that the 6 is the third significant figure, the fourth significant figure is the 7, fifth significant figure is the 8, sixth significant figure is the 3. So, first significant figure, second significant figure, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. The most important one to be able to find is the first significant figure. And you need to be a little bit careful, because if we'd just been using the number 0.83, then actually the first significant figure, the thing that tells you the most this time, is the 8. And the reason for that is because this number, 0.83, is exactly the same as this number. And you can see that in the way that I've written those two numbers, this 0 and this 0 and this 0, they're telling me very little. They're not telling me anything at all about this number, really. Whereas the 8 in the tenths column, that is telling me some information. So this 8, the first digit that isn't 0 is the first significant figure. And that's also true if I had been looking at this number. the first significant figure there would be the 3. The fact that there's a 0 in this column, and this column does tell you a very small amount of information, but it's the fact that there's a 3 in the thousandths column that tells you the most information there. So this would be your first significant figure, second significant figure, third significant figure. And that is basically critical to what we're going to be doing in today's lesson. So that's a bit of explanation from me, the I do. We're going to look at some worked examples, so the we do now. And if you think you can figure out, first of all, which digit is the first significant figure, and then secondly, working out how to round it to one significant figure, feel free to pause the video and have a go. Otherwise, watch me do it. Okay, so the first part of this question says they want me to identify which digit is the first significant figure. Now, I'm hoping that's reasonably straightforward from the explanation I just gave. So the first significant figure here is the 9. And so the next part, the part that's asking me to round to one significant figure, really is saying the same in this question as saying round it to the nearest 1,000. Obviously they couldn't have said round it to the nearest 1,000 because if there had been two different numbers here, let's say they'd asked me to round these two things, then to round to one significant figure, in the first one I'd be rounding to the nearest 1,000, but in this one I'd be rounding to the nearest 100. So significant figures are slightly different, but hopefully that makes sense. And so now that we've identified the right column, we know that my number line needs to look like this. Next one from 9,000 is 10,000. In the middle goes 9,500, and this goes below that, so it's nearer to this end. So this is 9,000 to one significant figure, and you can write that as 1 SF, like the question says. Okay, now another one. Again, pause the video first if you think you can have a go. I've now taught you enough from the first example that I think you can have a go. So pause the video, have a go at this, and then I'll go through it. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to attempt this question. So again, the first thing to do is identify the first significant figure. In this number, the 7 in the 10,000 column is the first significant figure, which means that I need 70,000 and 80,000 on my number line, and halfway between those is 75,000. 76,430 is bigger than the middle point there. That would go somewhere over here. And so this is equal to 80,000 to one significant figure. Okay, next question. Pause the video, see if you can identify the first significant figure and then round it. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to attempt that question. Here's the first significant figure, the 6 in the hundreds column. Because it's in the hundreds column, my number line goes in hundreds, and halfway along it would be 650. 658.4 is bigger than 650, so it'll be up here somewhere. That makes it nearer to the 700, so this is 700 to one significant figure. Okay, next question, 98.53. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, hopefully you've attempted that question. Here's the first significant figure, it's in the tens column. So this time my number line needs to go up in tens. Halfway between 90 and 100 is 95, and 98.53 is nearer to 100. So this is 100 to one significant figure. Last question from example 1. So again, pause the video, see if you can round this to one significant figure, and I'll go through it. Okay, hopefully you've identified the first significant figure correctly. That was this digit here, the 3, which means my number line needs to go from 0.3 to 0.4. Halfway between those is 0.35 and 0.3825, so the 8 tells me that I need to go up here somewhere, which makes it nearer to the 0.4. So this is 0.4 rounded to one significant figure. Okay, hopefully that has all made sense. Now we're on to worked example 2. We've got the same number that we had at the start of worked example 1, but this time the question's asking me to round it to the second, so first to find the second significant figure and then to round it to two significant figures. So this time I need to find the second significant figure. The easiest way to find the second significant figure is to first find the first significant figure. Here's the first significant figure, so here's the second one. I think that's probably enough information from me now for you to pause the video and have a go at this question yourself. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that question. Here's the second significant figure, so this time my number line needs to go in hundreds. Halfway between the two of them is 9,350, and I can see that 9,354 is slightly bigger, so it's nearer to 9,400. So I would round it to 9,400 to two significant figures. Next part. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that question. Here's the first significant figure, the 7. So here, the 6 is the second significant figure. So my number line needs to start with 76,000 and needs to go up in the thousands column, so that's 77,000. Halfway between those is 76,500, and I can see that this number is slightly lower than that, which makes it closer to 76,000. Okay, part 3. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that question. Again, the 6 is the first significant figure, so the 5 is the second significant figure, which means that my number line needs to start at 650 and go up to 660, and halfway between those is 655, and this number is bigger than that, so it goes up there somewhere, making it closer to the 660, so 660 to two significant figures. Part 4, pause the video, have a go. Okay, so here's the first significant figure, the 9. So the second significant figure is the 8. So that means I need a number line that looks like this. Halfway between those is 98.5. And 98.53 is very slightly bigger than that. So 98.5 is here. 98.53, very slightly bigger. But that makes it closer to 99. So it's two significant figures, 99. Okay, the last part of worked example 2. 0.3825, pause the video and have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had an attempt at that. Here's the first significant figure, so remember this is not significant. So this 3 is the first significant figure and the 8 is the second significant figure, which means I need a number line that starts like this and ends like this, and has the middle value 0.385. 0.3825 is less than that, so this is nearer to 0.38 to two significant figures. So you've had a look at rounding to one significant figure and two significant figures. I'm sure you can imagine what's coming in worked example 3. So I think you can pause the video and have a go at this question without me teaching you any more. Hopefully you've had an attempt at that question now, so I'll go through it. Here's the third significant figure. So I've got numbers that increase in the third column, which is the tens column. Halfway between those is 9,355. This is slightly lower than that, so it's nearer to this number, so 9,350 to three significant figures. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, so this time the third significant figure is this 4. So at this end, 76,400. At this end, 76,500. Halfway in between is 76,450. And now I'm looking at which end this is nearer to. This is lower than the middle value, so it goes about there. Nearer to 76,400. Okay, part 3. Pause the video, have a go. Hopefully you've had an attempt at that. Here's the third significant figure. So this time I need 658 and 659. Halfway in between those is 658.5. And this number is slightly less than that. So it's nearer to 658. Okay, on to part 4. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, this time, first significant figure is the 9, second significant figure is the 8, third significant figure is the 5. So my number line looks like this. Halfway between them is 98.55. 98.53 is a bit less than that, so it's nearer to 98.5. So there's my answer. Last one for worked example 3. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, this time don't forget, the 0 is not significant. First significant figure, second significant figure, the third significant figure is the 2. So my number line is 0.382, 0.383. Halfway in between them is 0.3825, which you'll notice is exactly what this number is. So it's not nearer to either end. When it's exactly halfway in between, you should know from primary school that we round up. So this one would round to 0.383 to 3 significant figures. And that's just so that everybody does the same thing. There's no mathematical reason for that. That's called a convention, and it's just to ensure that everybody does the same. Okay, so 0.383. Okay, worked example 4 is slightly different. This one asks us to pop something into our calculator and to write down the full result. So I've put this into my calculator. Now, hopefully you can put it into your calculator as well. Unfortunately, I can't display that on my screen while I record. So what you need to do when you put that into your calculator is make sure that your display, if it's a scientific calculator, your display should look exactly the same as it does in the question. If you do that, then when you press the equal sign, you should get exactly the right thing. Now, when I do it on my calculator, I get 1.276621285. Now, hopefully you got the same as that. If you didn't, then you might need to get in touch with me on Firefly to let me know that you're struggling to use your calculator. Now, the next part says give your answer to 3 significant figures. So, first of all, you might as well pause it and have a go, and I'll go through it in a sec. Okay, hopefully you've attempted that question. So on this question, the 1 is the first significant figure, the 2 is the second significant figure, the 7 is the third significant figure. So my number line should be 1.27 up to 1.28. Halfway in between those is 1.275 and 1.276. So anything that goes 1.276 would have to be slightly bigger, only slightly bigger, which makes it closer to 1.28. So this is 1.28 to 3 significant figures. Okay, so that concludes this video, and you should now be able to attempt your practice tasks. Before I get into the practice tasks, let me just explain that if you struggle with any of this, or you get onto the task and you're struggling, then one unstuck could be to watch Mr. Hegarty's video, where he goes through the same examples that I've just done. If you struggled with the content in this video, I mentioned it earlier, but you might want to revisit something like Hegarty Task 56, which is a bit of prior knowledge, or even further back, Hegarty Task 17, rounding to tens, hundreds and thousands. But your task, your main task, is to complete Hegarty Task 130. So this is your first task, and then there's a video for you to watch for the second task as well.